Dr. Aaron Foster gripped the steering wheel of his Mercedes, his knuckles white against the black leather. The steady hum of the engine and the soft classical music playing on the radio did little to calm his nerves. In the passenger seat, his wife, Melissa, leaned her head against the window, still groggy from the anesthesia. "How are you feeling, honey?" Aaron asked, forcing a smile as he glanced at her. Melissa's response was a mumbled jumble of words, her eyes unfocused. Aaron chuckled softly, recalling countless patients in similar states after wisdom tooth extractions. But this was different. This was Melissa, his wife of 15 years, the mother of his children, or so he had believed. The light turned red, and Aaron eased the car to a stop. He reached over to adjust Melissa's seatbelt, ensuring she was secure. As his hand brushed her shoulder, Melissa's eyes snapped open, suddenly alert. "You are an idiot," she slurred, her voice loud and harsh in the quiet car. Aaron blinked, startled. "What? I have been cheating on you from the day we married," Melissa continued, her words becoming clearer with each passing moment. "Also, the children are not even yours. They are from my ex-lovers. I do not even love you." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Aaron's breath caught in his throat, his mind reeling from the sudden onslaught of information. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Melissa was not finished. "You are so stupid," she giggled, the sound grating against Aaron's ears. "So trusting." It was easy, too easy. The light turned green, but Aaron did not move. Cars behind him began to honk. With shaking hands, he pulled over to the side of the road, his heart pounding in his chest. "Melissa," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are you saying?" But Melissa had slumped back against the window, her eyes closed. Once more, the anesthesia pulled her back under, leaving Aaron alone with the echoes of her confession. For a long moment, Aaron sat there frozen. Then, with trembling fingers, he reached for his phone. He opened the voice recorder application and pressed record just as Melissa stirred again. "I never loved you," she murmured, her voice soft but clear. "Not once, not ever." Aaron felt something break inside him. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, countless memories, all now tainted by the poison of her words. He wanted to scream, to shake her awake and demand answers, to drive the car into oncoming traffic and end it all. Instead, he took a deep breath, then another. His hands steadied on the wheel as he pulled back onto the road, his mind racing. If what Melissa said was true, and God, he prayed it wasn't, then he needed proof, real solid evidence, not just the ramblings of a woman under the influence of anesthesia. As they drove home in silence, Aaron began to plan. He would gather evidence. He would find out the truth. And then he would decide what to do next. The house loomed before them, a beautiful 2-story colonial that had once felt like a dream come true. Now, it felt like a mausoleum housing the corpse of his marriage. Aaron helped Melissa inside, tucking her into the bed with a gentle care that made his heart ache. How could she not love him? How could it all have been a lie? As Melissa drifted off to sleep, Aaron retreated to his home office. He sank into his leather chair, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. With shaking hands, he played back the recording on his phone. Melissa's words, harsh and cruel, filled the room. Aaron closed his eyes, letting the pain wash over him. Then, slowly, he opened his eyes. There was work to be done, a truth to be uncovered, and Aaron Foster was nothing if not thorough. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Hello? Yes, I need to hire a private investigator. It's about my wife." The next few weeks passed in a blur for Aaron. Life on the surface continued as normal. He went to work at his dental practice, smiled at his patients, and came home to his family. But beneath the facade, a storm was brewing. Melissa seemed to have no memory of her post-anesthesia confession. She went about her days as if nothing had changed, kissing Aaron goodbye in the mornings and chatting about the children's activities over dinner. Each smile, each casual touch, felt like a knife twisting in Aaron's gut. But he played his part perfectly. If Melissa noticed the tension in his shoulders or the darkness in his eyes, she said nothing. Meanwhile, the private investigator Aaron had hired, a no-nonsense woman named Sarah, was hard at work. Her updates arrived in encrypted emails, each one another blow to Aaron's crumbling world. Subject M observed entering Flex Fitness at 2:15 p.m., remained for 90 minutes. Left with male identified as Chris Parker, owner of Gym Chain Financial. Records show regular payments to Flex Fitness for personal training sessions. Frequency and amount suggest services beyond standard gym membership. Surveillance photos attached. Another read, Subject D and CP in intimate embrace outside local hotel. Aaron pored over each piece of evidence, his heart breaking anew with every revelation. But it wasn't enough. He needed more. One afternoon, while Melissa was at her gym session, Aaron found himself standing in their bedroom, staring at her tablet. He knew her passcode, her birthday, because of course it was. His fingers hovered over the screen. This was it, the point of no return. If he did this, there was no going back. He entered the code. The tablet came to life, and Aaron began to dig. It didn't take long to find what he was looking for. Hidden folders, secret messaging apps, photos that made his stomach churn. Melissa and Chris, tangled together in various states of undress. Messages filled with declarations of love and lust, plans for rendezvous thinly veiled as training sessions. And then, deep within her email archives, Aaron uncovered something that chilled him to the core. Correspondence with a fertility clinic, dated before their first child was born. It detailed discussions about sperm donors and IVF treatments, all concealed from him. With sickening clarity, the pieces fell into place. The children, his children, might not be his at all. Aaron sank heavily onto the bed, the tablet gripped in his trembling hands. He had known, deep down, since that day in the car, but witnessing the evidence, stark and undeniable, was an entirely different ordeal. He permitted himself one moment of weakness, one choked sob, one anguished cry muffled into a pillow that still carried the faint scent of Melissa's perfume. Then, he straightened up, wiped his eyes, and returned to the task at hand. There were DNA tests to arrange, lawyers to consult, a life to dismantle. As he left the bedroom, Aaron's gaze fell upon a family photograph on the wall. Melissa, himself, and the children, all beaming brightly at the camera, a portrait of happiness and perfection. With careful precision, Aaron removed the photo and placed it face down in a drawer. It was time to confront the truth, no matter how bitter it might be. Nature, it seemed, possessed a twisted sense of timing. Just as Aaron's world crumbled around him, the earth itself decided to shake things up, literally. The earthquake struck on a Tuesday afternoon. Aaron was at his dental practice, his hands steady as he attended to a patient. The initial tremor was gentle, barely perceptible, but then the world seemed to tilt, and the floor beneath them began to roll like a ship on stormy seas. "Everyone out," Aaron shouted, assisting his patient from the chair. They stumbled toward the exit, dodging falling equipment and shattered glass. Outside, chaos reigned. Car alarms blared, people screamed, and in the distance, a building groaned ominously before collapsing into a cloud of dust. Aaron's first thought was of Melissa and the children. He fumbled for his phone, dialing with shaking fingers. "Aaron?" Melissa's, her voice was breathless and panicked. "Oh, thank God. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he replied, surprised by how calm he sounded. "You and the kids?" "We're okay. We're at home. The house, there's some damage, but we're safe." Aaron closed his eyes, relief warring with the bitter knowledge of Melissa's betrayal. "Stay there. I'll be home as soon as I can." The drive home was a nightmare of cracked roads and down power lines. Aaron's dental practice was in ruins, years of work and investment reduced to rubble. But as he navigated the chaos, a plan began to form in his mind. This disaster, it could be an opportunity, a chance to access information that had been out of reach. In the confusion and panic, no one would question him too closely. When he finally reached home, Melissa threw herself into his arms. Aaron held her, breathing in her familiar scent, hating himself for the comfort he still found in her embrace. The kids clung to his legs, tears streaking their dusty faces. Aaron knelt down, gathering them close. DNA test or no DNA test, these were his children. He loved them, no matter what. The next few days were a blur of insurance claims, structural assessments, and cleanup efforts. Aaron threw himself into the work, using the physical labor to exhaust himself into dreamless sleep each night. But even as he helped his neighbors and comforted his family, Aaron was plotting. The earthquake had shaken loose more than just buildings. It had created cracks in Melissa's carefully constructed facade, and Aaron was determined to exploit them. One evening, As Melissa was on the phone with their insurance company, Aaron slipped into her home office. The damage from the quake had knocked things askew, and in the chaos, Melissa had grown careless. There, in a drawer that was usually locked but now hung open, Aaron found a treasure trove of damning evidence. Bank statements for an account he'd never known about, correspondence with Chris about their plans for the future. And then, as if the universe itself were conspiring to reveal the truth, Aaron heard Melissa's voice drift in from the next room. "Chris, baby, we need to be patient," she was saying, her voice low and urgent. "Once the insurance money comes through, we'll have everything we need. We can leave this town, start over somewhere new, just you and me." Aaron's hands clenched into fists, his nails digging crescents into his palms. The pain grounded him, kept him from storming into the room and confronting Melissa then and there. No, he had to be smart about this. He had to play the long game. As he carefully replaced the documents and slipped out of the office, Aaron's mind was racing. He had all the pieces now, all the evidence he needed to tear Melissa's world apart, just as she had destroyed his. But it wasn't enough to simply expose her lies. No, Aaron wanted more than that. He wanted Melissa and Chris to feel the full weight of their betrayal. He wanted them to lose everything, just as he had. As he walked down the hallway, passing the family photos that now felt like monuments to a lie, Aaron made a decision. This wasn't just about divorce or revenge. This was war. And Dr. Aaron Foster, the mild-mannered dentist who had been a fool for love, was about to show the world just how dangerous he could be. Dr. Aaron Foster sat in the darkness of his home office, the blue glow of his computer screen casting eerie shadows across his face. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he stared at the newly created social media profile before him. Alexander Roth, venture capitalist, fitness enthusiast, looking to invest in promising local businesses. It was a lie, of course, a carefully crafted persona designed for one purpose: to ensnare Chris Parker, the man who had stolen his wife and shattered his world. Aaron's jaw clenched as he uploaded a stock photo of a distinguished-looking businessman. It was close enough to his own appearance to be believable, should he ever need to meet in person. A person, yet different enough to avoid immediate recognition. With a deep breath, he began to flesh out the profile. Harvard Business School, years of successful investments in tech startups, and a recent interest in the health and fitness industry. Every detail was meticulously researched. Every claim was just plausible enough to withstand cursory scrutiny. As he worked, Aaron's mind drifted to Melissa. Was she with Chris now? Were they laughing about how they had fooled the idiot dentist for so long? The thought made his hands shake with rage. He forced himself to focus on the task at hand. There would be time for anger later. Now was the time for calm, calculated action. Finally satisfied with his creation, Aaron navigated to Chris Parker's business page for Flex Fitness. His mouse hovered over the message button for a moment before he clicked, a grim smile playing at his lips. "Mr. Parker," he typed, slipping into the persona of Alexander Roth with unsettling ease. "I have recently moved to the area, and I am impressed by what I have seen of your gym franchise. I am always on the lookout for promising investment opportunities in the fitness industry. Would you be interested in discussing the possibility of expansion?" Aaron hit send, then leaned back in his chair, his heart pounding. The bait was set. Now all he had to do was wait for Chris to take it. He did not have to wait long. Within an hour, a reply popped up in his inbox. Aaron could almost taste the eagerness in Chris's response. "Mr. Roth, I am thrilled by your interest. I have been looking for investors to help take Flex Fitness to the next level. When can we meet to discuss this exciting opportunity?" Aaron allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Chris was hooked, line and sinker. Now it was time to reel him in slowly, carefully, until he was gasping and helpless on the shore. Over the next few weeks, Alexander Roth and Chris exchanged a flurry of messages. Aaron played his part perfectly, expressing increasing interest in Flex Fitness. From his vantage point as the unseen puppet master, Aaron observed Chris's growing excitement with a sense of grim satisfaction. The gym owner, buoyed by the prospect of a multi-million-dollar investment, began to outline ambitious expansion plans. He spoke of franchising opportunities in neighboring states, the acquisition of state-of-the-art equipment, and securing celebrity endorsements. He envisioned an entire empire built upon the Flex Fitness brand, his voice filled with fervor and ambition. Throughout these discussions, Melissa became increasingly involved. Aaron noticed her name appearing repeatedly in email chains and heard her voice in the background during video calls with Chris. She was wholly invested in this new venture, eager to ride Chris's coattails to a life of luxury and freedom. The sight of her enthusiasm turned Aaron's stomach, but he suppressed his nausea, channeling it into fuel for his revenge. As Alexander led Chris further down the primrose path, Aaron was already setting another scheme in motion. Late one night, using a secure, anonymous email account, he dispatched a tip to the IRS. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he composed the message. "To whom it may concern," he wrote, "I have reason to believe that Chris Parker, owner of Flex Fitness, has been engaging in systematic tax evasion for years. Attached, please find documentation of suspicious financial activities." The documentation was a masterpiece of misdirection and half-truths. It contained just enough factual information to spark an investigation, interwoven with carefully crafted falsehoods designed to lead the IRS down a convoluted rabbit hole of Chris's finances. As he clicked send, Aaron felt a fleeting twinge of guilt. This was more than mere revenge, it was pure destruction. But then he recalled Melissa's words, slurred yet crystal clear. "I've been cheating on you from the day we married." The guilt evaporated, replaced by cold, hard resolve. Chris Parker had taken everything from him. Now, Aaron was going to return the favor. Meanwhile, Melissa Foster hummed to herself as she prepared dinner, a spring in her step that had been absent for years. In her mind, everything was falling perfectly into place. Chris's gym stood on the verge of a major breakthrough. The expansion, made possible by this enigmatic investor, would soon grant them the financial means and liberty to embark on a new life together. As she heard Aaron's key turning in the lock, a sharp pang of guilt pierced her conscience. Poor, unsuspecting Aaron. He had been so supportive recently, even proposing that they invest a portion of their savings in a joint business venture. For a moment, it nearly made her regret the scheme she was preparing. Almost. "Honey, I'm home," Aaron called out, his voice brimming with warmth and affection. Melissa fixed a bright smile on her face as he stepped into the kitchen. "Welcome back, dear. How was your day?" Aaron leaned in to kiss her cheek, and Melissa had to suppress the instinct to pull away. "Busy but good. How about you? Any exciting plans?" Melissa's heart began to race. Did he suspect something? No, it was impossible. Aaron remained as oblivious as ever. "Oh, just the usual," she replied smoothly, lying through her smile. "I might meet up with some friends later." Aaron nodded, his expression unreadable. "Sounds nice. Oh, before I forget," he added, "I scheduled Chris for a dental checkup next week. I thought we could offer him a friends and family discount, considering how much time you spend at his gym." Melissa nearly dropped the spoon she was holding. "Oh, that's thoughtful of you." Aaron shrugged, already turning away. "It's nothing. I'm going to grab a shower before dinner." The moment Aaron was out of earshot, Melissa snatched her phone and hastily typed a message to Chris. "Aaron scheduled you for a dental appointment. Be careful." Upstairs, in the privacy of the bathroom, Aaron permitted himself a faint, grim smile as he watched Melissa's message appear on Chris's phone. The spyware he had installed was functioning flawlessly. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had planned. The following week, as Chris sat anxiously in Aaron's dental chair, he remained completely unaware that he was stepping into a meticulously set trap. "Open wide," Aaron said cheerfully, snapping on a fresh pair of gloves. While he worked, he maintained a steady stream of casual small talk, lulling Chris into a false sense of security. It was almost too easy to swab the inside of Chris's cheek for the DNA sample. The sample was secured without the other man ever realizing what had transpired. Later that night, after Melissa had retired to bed, Aaron meticulously packaged the specimen and dispatched it for analysis. One more piece of evidence to augment his burgeoning collection. Yet deoxyribonucleic acid was not the sole focus of Aaron's acquisitions. Over the ensuing weeks, he installed concealed cameras and microphones throughout the residence. It sickened him to witness the footage, to observe Melissa and Chris in intimate moments within his own home, but he compelled himself to scrutinize every second, cataloging each betrayal and falsehood. All the while, he perfected the role of the supportive, unsuspecting husband. "I truly believe this business venture could prove advantageous for us," he confided to Melissa one evening, his tone earnest and animated. "We should offer the house as collateral to demonstrate our seriousness to the bank." Melissa's eyes brightened with anticipation, and Aaron struggled to conceal his revulsion. She was so willing to gamble with their shared life, oblivious that she had already forfeited everything. As Melissa agreed with fervor, already envisioning the wealth she imagined awaited her, Aaron was maneuvering the concluding elements of his scheme into place. Anonymously, he dispatched dossiers of intelligence to Chris's wife and business associates. Photographs, text messages, financial documentation, irrefutable substantiation of the affair and Chris's fiscal transgressions. Then, in a maneuver that would serve as the final blow, Aaron commenced manipulating their joint financial records. To any observer, it would seem Melissa had been systematically embezzling funds for months, diverting money into a clandestine account. As he labored deep into the night, painstakingly fabricating records and constructing a paper trail of Melissa's fictitious crimes, a frigid contentment enveloped Aaron. The snare was primed. All that remained was to trigger it. The tempest erupted on a Tuesday. Chris Parker was in the midst of a training session. As the IRS agents entered his gym, Chris watched in slack-jawed disbelief as they began boxing up documents and computers. "What is going on?" he demanded, but the agents merely handed him a warrant and continued their work without explanation. Across town, Melissa was enjoying a leisurely lunch with friends when her phone buzzed with a text from Chris. "IRS at the gym. Everything frozen. Call you later." Her blood ran cold. This couldn't be happening, not now when they were so close to achieving their dream. But the setbacks continued relentlessly. By the time Melissa arrived home, her world was in free fall. Chris's wife had gone public with their affair, plastering social media with evidence of their indiscretions. His business partners were rapidly distancing themselves, issuing public statements expressing their shock and disappointment. Then came the final blow. "Melissa," Aaron's voice was calm, almost gentle, as he approached her in the kitchen. "We need to talk." She turned to find him holding a stack of papers. Divorce papers, she realized with a jolt. "Aaron, I can explain," she began. But Aaron raised a hand, silencing her. "Save it, Melissa. I know everything. The affair, the embezzlement, the children. How long did you think you could keep it all hidden?" Melissa felt the floor drop out from under her. How could he possibly know? As if reading her mind, Aaron continued. "Did you really think I was that stupid? That I wouldn't notice the missing money, the late nights, the lies? I've known for months, Melissa. I was just waiting for the right moment." Melissa's mind raced. The joint business venture, Aaron's sudden interest in their finances, it had all been a setup. She had walked directly into his trap. "The children," she whispered, a last desperate attempt to salvage something. "They're innocent in all this. You wouldn't abandon them like you were planning to do?" Aaron's voice was ice. "Don't worry, Melissa. I'm not like you. I love those children, even if they're not biologically mine. But make no mistake, you won't be." As Melissa saw them once more, she collapsed into a chair, her world shattering around her. In the span of a few hours, she had lost everything: her lover, her children, her future. And as she lifted her gaze to Aaron, perceiving the cold, unyielding resolve in his eyes, she understood that she had underestimated him all along. This was not the meek, trusting fool she believed she had married. This was a man who had methodically dismantled her entire existence. While Aaron laid out the terms of their divorce, his voice detached as though discussing a business transaction, Melissa felt a chill course down her spine. She had thought herself the clever one, playing Aaron for a fool all those years, but in the end, she had been the greatest fool of all. The conference room at Jameson and Harley law offices felt more like a gladiatorial arena than a place of business. Aaron Foster sat at one end of the long mahogany table, his posture relaxed, almost bored. Across from him, Melissa and Chris fidgeted in their seats, exchanging nervous glances. Aaron's lawyer, a sharp man in an expensive suit named Michael Hartley, stood by the window, deliberately ignoring the tension in the room. This was Aaron's show, and he knew it. "Thank you both for coming," Aaron began, his voice calm and measured. "I thought it would be best if we discussed the terms of the divorce settlement face to face." Melissa's eyes narrowed. "Terms, Aaron? Be reasonable. You can't possibly think—" "Oh, I think a great many things, Melissa." Aaron cut her off, a hint of steel entering his tone. For instance, I think it's time we put all our cards on the table. Don't you? With deliberate slowness, Aaron reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. He opened it, spreading photographs and documents across the table like a dealer at a high-stakes poker game. What is this? Chris demanded, leaning forward to get a better look. His face paled as he recognized himself in some of the photographs, images capturing intimate moments with Melissa. In the shadows, clandestine meetings took place, accompanied by the discreet exchange of money. This, Aaron declared, his voice saturated with feigned concern, is what those of us in the business world refer to as leverage. You see, I have been exceedingly occupied these past few months. While the two of you were orchestrating your grand escape, I was, shall we say, meticulously documenting your indiscretions. Melissa's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. You knew? All this time. Aaron's laugh was cold, utterly devoid of humor. Oh, Melissa, I knew everything. Your affair, your plans to leave, the truth regarding the children's parentage. Did you genuinely believe I was that foolish? Chris slammed his fist upon the table. This is blackmail. You can't. I can, and I have, Aaron interrupted smoothly. But this is merely the appetizer. Would you care to see the main course? He pressed a button on a remote, and the large screen on the wall flickered to life. Security camera footage began to play, showing Melissa and Chris in various compromising positions, discussing their plans and laughing about how they were deceiving Aaron. You bugged our house. Melissa whispered, horrified. Our house. Aaron's voice was razor-sharp. You mean the house you were scheming to sell out from under me? The home you share with our children. Sorry, your children, while carrying on your sordid affair. Yes, Melissa. I bugged our house. Chris stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. This is insane. We're leaving. Come on, Melissa. Aaron's smile was predatory. Oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you, Chris. You see, the authorities are very interested in some of the information I have uncovered. Tax evasion, fraud, misuse of client funds. It would be a profound shame if all that evidence found its way to the IRS and the police, wouldn't it? The color drained from Chris's face as he slowly sank back into his chair. Melissa looked between the two men, her world crumbling around her. What do you want, Aaron? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Aaron leaned back in his chair, the very picture of relaxed confidence. What do I want? I want justice, Melissa. I want you both to comprehend the full magnitude of what you have done to me, to our family, and to everyone who placed their trust in you. He turned to his lawyer, Michael. Would you mind giving us the room for a few minutes? I believe it is time for a frank discussion between old friends. As the lawyer departed, closing the door behind him, Aaron's demeanor transformed. The mask of civility fell away, revealing the raw pain and fury beneath. Did you ever love me, Melissa? Was any of it real? Melissa flinched at the question. I thought I did, once in the beginning. But then you got bored. Aaron finished for her, his voice sharp. And instead of acting like an adult and ending things, you chose to string me along for years. To bear children who were not mine and let me raise them as my own. To plan your escape while smiling in my face every single day. Chris, sensing an opening, attempted to interject. Look, man, we never meant. Shut up. Aaron's voice cracked like a whip. You do not get to speak. You were merely a symptom of the disease, Chris. A parasite who latched onto a vulnerable woman and exploited her for your own gain. He turned back to Melissa, his gaze unwavering. I want you to understand something. All of this, it is not merely about the affair. It is about the years of lies, the manipulation, the way you were willing to destroy our family and uproot our children's lives, all for your own selfish desires. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. Aaron, please. We can work this out, for the kids. The kids? Aaron's laugh was bitter. You mean the children you were prepared to abandon? The ones you lied to me about for years? No, Melissa. You do not get to use them as a bargaining chip now. He stood, looming over the table. Here is what is going to happen. You will sign these divorce papers. You will agree to my terms, which, believe me, are far more generous than you deserve. And then you will leave. Both of you. You will walk out of here and out of my life. Chris, his bravado long gone, spoke up in a shaky voice. His voice was cold, and his smile was chilling. If we don't reach an agreement, I will release everything. every sordid detail, every financial transgression, every lie you have ever told. I will burn your lives to the ground and salt the earth behind me. The choice is yours." The room fell silent for a long moment, the weight of Aaron's words hanging heavily in the air. Finally, Melissa reached for a pen, her hand trembling as she signed the papers. She looked up at Aaron one last time and said, "I truly am sorry, Aaron, for everything." Aaron's face remained impassive as he took the signed documents. "No, Melissa, you are not sorry you did it. You are sorry you got caught. There is a difference." He gathered his belongings and moved toward the door. As he reached for the handle, he turned back one last time. "Oh, and Chris, I would start looking for a good criminal defense lawyer if I were you. I hear the IRS is very interested in your financial records." With that, Aaron walked out, leaving Melissa and Chris to face the wreckage of their lives. Whispers followed Melissa through the grocery store aisles, a constant hum of judgment and scorn. She kept her head down, trying to ignore the stares and the not-so-subtle pointing. "Did you hear?" One voice carried above the others. "She cheated on Dr. Foster for years with that gym trainer, no less. And the children aren't even his." Another voice chimed in. "Can you imagine?" Melissa's hands shook as she reached for a box of cereal, the same brand she had bought for years when she was still Mrs. Foster, still respected, still part of the community. Now, it felt like a relic from another life. In the weeks following the divorce, she tried to hold her head high, to brazen it out, but Aaron's influence ran deep in their small town. Slowly but surely, doors began to close, invitations dried up, and even her closest friends started to distance themselves, not wanting to be tainted by association. Chris was not faring any better. The last Melissa had heard, all his gym franchises were struggling. He was in the process of selling off his assets to cover his mounting legal fees. The IRS investigation had opened a Pandora's box of financial misdeeds, and now he was fighting simply to stay out of prison. As for their grand plans of starting a new life together, they crumbled to dust in the harsh light of reality. Chris had become bitter and angry, lashing out at Melissa as if she were to blame for all his troubles. Their passionate affair had devolved into a toxic codependence, both of them clinging to the wreckage of their former lives. Melissa finished her shopping and headed to her car, a far cry from the luxury SUV she had once driven. As she loaded the groceries, a familiar voice called out, "Mom." She turned to see her children. No, Aaron's children, she reminded herself bitterly, running toward her. Aaron stood a short distance away, watching carefully. "Hey, sweetheart." Melissa forced a smile, kneeling down to hug them. "Are you having fun with your dad?" The older child, Emily, nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, we're going to the zoo today. Dad says we can see the new tiger cubs." Melissa's heart clenched. She had been the one to promise that zoo trip months ago, before everything fell apart. "That's wonderful, honey. You'll have to tell me all about it next time I see you." As the children chatted excitedly, Melissa looked up to meet Aaron's gaze. His face was impassive, but she could see the mix of emotions in his eyes, pain, anger, but also a fierce protectiveness as he looked at the kids. He had kept his word. Despite everything, he maintained a relationship with the children, never letting on that he wasn't their biological father. It was a kindness Melissa knew she didn't deserve. "All right, kids," Aaron called out. "Say goodbye to your mother. We need to get going if we want to beat the crowds at the zoo." The children hugged Melissa one last time before running back to Aaron. As they walked away, Melissa heard Emily ask, "Dad, why doesn't Mom live with us?" Aaron's response was too quiet for Melissa to hear, but she saw him kneel down, speaking gently to the children. Always a protector, even now. Melissa got into her car, tears streaming down her face. This was her new reality, watching from the sidelines as his life went on without her. Later that night, after tucking the children into bed, Aaron sat at his computer, his finger hovering over the send button. On the screen was an email, carefully worded and anonymized, addressed to two men he had never met, but whose DNA ran through the veins of the children he had raised as his own. "You have a right to know," the email read, followed by details about the children, their ages, their names, and the circumstances of their conception. Aaron took a deep breath and clicked send. It was done. He had fulfilled what he saw as his final moral obligation to these innocent lives caught in the crossfire of adult betrayals. As he closed his laptop, Aaron allowed himself a moment of reflection. His time with the children was coming to an end, but he was determined to make their remaining days together count. Every bedtime story, every trip to the park, every shared laugh. These were the memories he would carry with him into his new life. It was a bittersweet realization, but Aaron knew it was necessary, a clean break for all of them. The children would have a chance to know their biological fathers, and he would have the opportunity to truly start anew, unburdened by the constant reminders of Melissa's betrayal. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the empty rooms of the Foster family home. Aaron stood in the doorway of what had once been the master bedroom, a cardboard box in his arms, the last of his belongings, ready to be loaded into the moving truck idling in the driveway. He had sold the house weeks ago, another step in severing his ties to this town and the life he had built here. The new owners would be moving in tomorrow, a young couple starting their own family. Aaron hoped they would be happier here than he had been as he descended the stairs, his footsteps echoing through the empty space. He paused by the kitchen counter, where a single envelope lay, his last piece of unfinished business. Taking a deep breath, he set down the box and picked up the envelope. On the front, in his neat, precise handwriting, was written Melissa. He had debated long and hard about whether to leave this note, whether Melissa deserved even this small courtesy. But in the end, he decided it was necessary, not for her, but for him. It was a final act of closure before he left this chapter of his life behind for good. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper, bearing words that encompassed all his pain, his anger, and his final goodbye. Melissa, your ex-lover knows about the kids. Good luck dealing with that mess. I'm out of all this, leaving this town forever. Goodbye, Aaron. He placed the envelope back on the counter, positioning it so it would be impossible to miss. Then he picked up his box and walked out the front door for the last time. The moving truck was packed and ready to go. Aaron's new life awaited him in a city hundreds of miles away. A new dental practice, bought with the proceeds from the sale of his old one and the favorable divorce settlement. It was a fresh start, unburdened by the weight of betrayal and lies. As he climbed into the driver's seat, Aaron allowed himself one last look at the house. So many memories, good and bad. The life he thought he would have, the future he had planned, all gone now, washed away by Melissa's infidelity and his own calculated revenge. For a moment, doubt crept in. Had he gone too far? The devastation he had wrought on Melissa and Chris's lives was complete. They had lost everything. Their reputations, their livelihoods, their futures. Even the children, whom Aaron had grown to love despite their lack of biological connection, would suffer from the fallout. But then Aaron remembered the cold, cruel the words Melissa had spoken that day in the car echoed in his mind. The years of lies, the betrayals, the way she had been prepared to abandon everything, to tear their family apart for her own selfish desires. No, Aaron decided, he had not gone too far. He had merely given Melissa and Chris a taste of the devastation they had been prepared to inflict upon him. An eye for an eye, a life for a life. With a nod of finality, Aaron started the engine. As he pulled away from the curb, he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure at the end of the street. Melissa, standing there watching, her face a mask of regret and loss. Aaron did not slow down. He drove past without a second glance, his eyes fixed firmly on the road ahead, on his future. The town fell away behind him, growing smaller in his rearview mirror until it disappeared altogether. With each passing mile, Aaron felt the weight lifting from his shoulders. The anger, the pain, the thirst for vengeance, all of it faded, replaced by a sense of calm purpose. He was Dr. Aaron Foster, and he was starting over. His past lay behind him, a cautionary tale and a hard-learned lesson, but his future, that was still unwritten, full of possibilities. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Aaron allowed himself a small smile. For the first time in years, he felt truly free. The road stretched out before him, long and winding, leading to a new life and new adventures. And somewhere deep inside, in a place he had almost forgotten existed, Aaron felt the stirring of hope. Not for reconciliation or forgiveness, for those bridges were well and truly burned, but hope for something new, something better. The motor ate up the miles, carrying Aaron toward his fresh start. And as the familiar landmarks of his old life faded into the distance, so too did the last vestiges of the man he used to be. Dr. Aaron Foster was gone. In his place stood a man tempered by betrayal, hardened by revenge, but ultimately freed by the very acts that had nearly destroyed him. The future awaited, and this time, Aaron was prepared to face it upon his own terms. Here, our story draws to a close. Share your reflections in the comments section. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video displayed on your screen, and I will meet you there.